I think the fact that that I know that every now and then I hearken back to what's happened to people like Terry Lovelace and several of your other guests who basically talked about the fact that, you know, they were treated like they were lab rats with zero emotion. And I think that, you know, from what Terry explained, you know, they couldn't have cared less where they were crying out in pain or they were having issues. They were dealing with it, you know, like from this totally non-emotional point of view. And the gentleman that I talked to said, yeah, well, those were Ebens 2. And I said, explain. And he said, well, Ebens 2 were made by the Ebens 1 to basically carry out their dirty work as far as doing the lab work with human beings on this planet. And they have no emotions. And, you know, at the end of the day, it's quite a bit to wrap your head around to try to figure out, you know, who we are and what part we play in this cosmic game that's going on out there. I think that sometimes, Gary, the only thing that keeps me reasonable is the fact that that thing that I talk about when we're doing our music, that you call it the source, you can call it cosmic consciousness, you can call it God, that spark of divinity, so to speak. I think when I look back on that and I see that is inherent in me and Charlie and Corey and Val and people like yourself and James, you know, that is basically, you know, the only thing that keeps me a sane and viable human being. Because all the rest of the stuff, it's really tough for me to wrap my head around it.
Well, you know, like I've said before, we were engineered, number one, probably as a workforce. Probably a civilization came to our planet, okay, for its minerals. Let's face it. Why would the Mayas, the Incas, and all the other ones collect gold and think gold was precious? Why wouldn't they have collected brass or lead? I mean, no, it was gold. They hoarded gold. They wanted gold. They probably got that because they had to mine for gold for these aliens or these other beings. That, you know, I really think that we were engineered. The pyramids, everything doesn't make any logical sense if you go by the theories. Okay, I don't think we built the pyramids. I don't think we built the Sphinx because it's a proven fact the Sphinx is older than mankind. It's a lot of things that don't jive here. My feeling is the government knows what's going on, and they don't want to tell us because I don't think they think we can handle it. As you know, I managed to talk to Ronald Reagan a few times because my dad's friend was a friend from with Ronald Reagan when Ronald, you know, was in the not that, but my dad's friend met my dad in Korea when they were waiting to be discharged. And my dad's friend was a good friend of Ronald Reagan. And I kept, you know, telling my dad's friend, I would like to talk to Ronald Reagan. Well, he made arrangements for me to do it. I remember one time when he was still president, I asked him, I said, because I was so worried about wars with the Soviet Union, I said to Ronald, I said, you know, Star Wars, would that protect us against, you know, these nuclear missiles if we got attacked? And I remember what he said. He says, it'll protect us against them out there. And then he wouldn't say anything more. I think he even slipped up when he said that much. But he sure didn't have nothing, he didn't have no qualms to go up to the UN and tell the UN that we should be prepared for an alien invasion.
Well, you know, the funny thing is that gentleman addressed that with me, and he said, do you remember when Ronald Reagan addressed the United Nations and he talked about what if a force from, you know, out there came in? He said we would forget all our petty differences and we would unite. And what Casey allegedly told Reagan was that there was a group of beings that were here. They were called the Tantraloids. I hope I have that right. He said that they were bad news. He said that as far as their technology, they were about 1,000 years ahead of us. But he said they actually were the ones that had the bases, that established bases here, and that we are literally at war with them. And he said that they're capable of shape-shifting to look something like what's described as a Nordic. They're capable of doing that, so they look more like a blonde-haired, blue-eyed human. And he said that they're actually insectoid in nature, and they're extremely dangerous, and they allegedly captured one in Canada in the 60s, and it was so dangerous because of the mental abilities that it had that they euthanized it. Supposedly there's a museum, and he told me this too, down in Florida, South Florida, where the U.S. government is keeping, bodies, alleged bodies of aliens down there. And he said that when, you talked about Reagan talking about the threat from, quote, out there, that's allegedly what he was referring to, were the tantraloids that, have established bases here, but they're not. They have a foothold, but they're not really entrenched. But supposedly that's the one group that they're really afraid of.
Well,
they're extremely malevolent group.
Yeah, but tell me, why would we all of a sudden create a space force now? All of a sudden, when we're technically broke as a country right now.
Gary, you know, and I know that when back in 2001, when who was that guy? I can't think of his name, but he admitted that there were $4.1 trillion missing. They don't know what happened to it. Yeah, they know what happened to it. What do you think they spent that stuff on? They spent it on that high-tech stuff. Supposedly, that Space Force is already in existence, and all of that money has been going to black ops programs, and they have the technology that's like 100 years, more advanced than anything that they're showing the public. So I think that this whole thing with Trump coming out and going, yeah, we're going to start a Space Force. Yeah, well, BS. It's already there. It's already there. And I think that as I remember, James talked about that a couple of weeks ago. That there's already evidence that thing already exists.
Yeah. That matter of fact, they signed it. They They brought in the new leader of the general just a couple of weeks ago. Swore him in.
Yeah, I find this whole thing interesting. And why, of anybody, why didn't the Air Force get it? No, it goes to the Navy, which has the biggest budget. That don't make sense. And who came out and talked about UFOs, unidentified flying objects? It was the Navy. It sure wasn't the Army or the Air Force or the Marines.
The Army only came out and talked about it after the Navy did.
Yeah, I got a funny feeling something is going on. Unfortunately, we're not going to find out when it happens. That's the way it is. Just like asteroids, okay? They never tell us if one is going to come close to Earth to after it comes by. Those ones, they say, well, it missed us last night. Or, a lot of things that just is starting to get me worried because, as you know, for the past year, all I've been hearing from my friends, which I kind of separated myself from some of them because some of them just wanted to make money off of it, was disclosure. Sure. So they quickly wrote books on disclosure. All this big disclosure was going to come out. Nothing more than what we heard. The biggest disclosure is that the Navy said we have some unidentified flying objects. We don't know where they're coming from. We don't know anything about them. But there's unidentified objects. Okay, we already knew that.
Well, yeah, they admitted that the gun cameras picked up something very real. And they would at least not acknowledge that, but that's the extent of what they did.
Well, what's it going to take? One day we call a national, martial law because we're being invaded? Maybe like some of the War of the Worlds down the road could be the future. I don't know.
My friend, you bring up, unfortunately, a very real scenario, and that's the reason that I made the comment that I did about that friend of mine that was a lieutenant colonel and all those germs and the coronavirus, etc., because that can very, very, very easily be used to instigate martial law, and it doesn't matter what country it's in. They want to do it globally. Supposedly there's a move afoot, of the illuminated ones to do that, and there are those that'll say, "Oh, you're just basically engaging in theory, Tom, and paranoia." And I'm going, really? If you really do your homework, those people really do exist, and they have an agenda, and it's not pro Gary or pro Tom or pro James. I can guarantee it.
Well, I can tell you this.
As far as they're concerned, you and I are nothing more than a commodity, and we're totally expendable.
Tell me about that. One of my regular people that tell me things, who was former government agent at one time, okay, told me that, quote unquote, they got the FEMA camps ready just in case of this virus spreading out of control in this country.
I've seen there's a lot of information that you can gather on that, especially all those millions of polycarbonate coffins that I'm sure they just had to plant flowers or make vegetable gardens in.
Oh, yeah. Well, great for tomato plants. Now, everybody out there, our show will end at 9 o'clock with the radio stations. Now, and that I have no control of. But if any of the stations want to carry us past 9 o'clock, I'm probably going to go another 15 minutes or a half an hour, depending on Tom, if he wants to keep talking. Because
sure, I'd love to.
I want to get my feeling out. How about you, James?
Sure, why not? Where am I going to go?
Well,
James, I'll buy a quart of half and half of those Frosted Flakes.
Oh, that's a deal.
Yeah, and he's got, I won't mention, off the air, I'll tell you what he drinks. He needs to quit drinking that stuff. He's setting himself up to be what do you call it, when they go to bury you, embalmed. That's what he's doing.
Formaldehyde.
Yeah, he drinks that by the gallon.
I cut down now.
Oh, he cut down, yeah. Well, how many bottles a day?
Oh, no. Maybe one can, maybe two at the tops.
Yeah,
I hope he's not drinking that energy drink stuff.
Oh, no.
That's energy drink stuff is bad, because my one son, it has a lot of mental issues. They all stemmed it back when he was like 14, 15 years old, playing tons of hours and hours of video games on the computer and drinking 5 to 8 cans of, that energy drink. And then all of a sudden he had childhood epilepsy, yeah, which then turned into the full-fledged. Anyway, don't hang up, guys. We're going to do our little song for the show, and then we'll continue on the internet. So if anybody wants to hang in, we're going to be in there for another 15 to 30 minutes, because I just want to voice my opinion here tonight. So you're listening. Yeah, you're listening to Night Dreams Talk Radio. We'll be back in about 2 minutes.
Scintillas in the stream, hoping for what's true. I'm trawling for honor in this shallow pool. Borealis starlit crown arches over the Puget Sound. His hair drapes the horizon to the Where is my lucky star tonight?
Do you have a paranormal story you want to share on Night Dreams Talk Radio? You could be a guest. Email us at nightdreamstalkradio@gmail.com.
You can advertise your business on Night Dreams Talk Radio, and you will be heard worldwide. Why not contact us at Night Dreams?